and welcome to Just One More Cookie, a podcast about two sisters' journeys toward complete health and wellness. We definitely don't have it all figured out, and we're still in the thick of it, but we are enjoying the ride. We'd love for you to come and join us for just one more cookie.
Hi, friends, and welcome to Just One More Cookie. My name is Amy.
And I'm Abby.
So before we start, I want to make sure, please like, share, subscribe to Just One More Cookie. So you might be watching us on YouTube, which is great. Please make sure that you subscribe, click the little bell. You might be listening to us on a podcast platform like iTunes or Spotify. Please make sure that you leave a review, that you share with your friends, because we really want to build this community and share the wealth of knowledge and information and fun that we're having, and definitely to be able to communicate with you guys, which is why we have an email address. It is One More Cookie Pod. Is that right?
It is.
I get it wrong every time.
Job.
Thank you so much. All of it's spelled out. One More Cookie pod at gmail.com. So we want to hear from you. We want to hear topic ideas. If you have a story that you want to share with us, if you have feedback that you want to give us, please, we want to communicate. We don't just want to be behind here talking to each other, even though I thoroughly enjoy talking to you, Abigail.
Mm-hmm. Me too.
So we would like to extend the conversation with our other friends. So please make sure that that you share, like, subscribe, and also talk to us, because we want to talk to you. So let's dive into what we're going to be talking about today, because we have a lot of information. We're going to try not to talk fast, but just know that we are back into science this week.
Yay!
Yay! Mostly just some data that we found, because I personally have discredited this topic for the majority of my life, and I think probably a lot of you can say the same, because we are talking about sleep and rest today, and how much sleep and rest has an impact on our overall health, especially if you are trying to lose weight, trying to maintain health, really anything that you're trying to do for yourself. If you are not paying attention to your sleep patterns and paying attention to sleep, it is going to negatively affect you. So I have two things that I found that I thought was pretty shocking. On average, humans are only receiving 6.8 hours of sleep a night, and they are saying that this is not the majority. This is an average, that actually the majority tips towards less sleep. That we are supposed to be having between 7 to 9 hours of sleep a night, but on average, most of us aren't. And then it says 1 in 3 adults are not getting enough sleep. And which sounds like, bummer, but when we really started looking into what the cause, like what happens when we don't sleep, it becomes an even more impactful issue than what you would assume.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that this episode, this information is really important. And I think it's because we take advantage or take for granted how much we need sleep, especially as we get older and busier in our jobs and with our families. And we put that on the back burner. And as we're going to talk about, there are so many things that affect it. And so I think that it's going to be eye-opening for us, and hopefully for other people listening or watching, that this is something that we cannot neglect. As I have, gotten older and gotten to my routine, I've tried to be more conscious of my sleep health. And it's not really shocking, but I feel like everybody that I talk to tells me, I just need 4 hours of sleep and I'm good. And I tell them all the time, well, science says that you're wrong. So maybe you need to look into this more. So I think that we're going to have a whole lot of things, interesting things that we're going to talk about. And then hopefully we'll have some nuggets that you can take away and try to put into practice so that you can start to implement this and start to get more healthy with your sleep. So
I wanted to say something.
Go ahead, say something.
Okay, so I want to speak to what you said about this idea of I only need 4 hours of sleep or whatever. Because I remember our dad used to say that all the time, because he wasn't like a big sleeper, and he was like, oh, I don't really need that much sleep. I read an article that said that your body is adaptable. So you can train your body to do a lot. You
Mm-hmm.
know, like you can train your body to get into habits that aren't healthy for you, but will become very normalized. So even though you can survive on 4 hours of sleep, that does not mean that your body is not suffering the negative effects of not having enough sleep. And you might not see the evidence of that until later on in life. But I want you, before we even get started, if you're one of those people that says, I only need 4 hours of sleep, I just want you to pause with that mentality and revisit it when we're done talking through all of this, because the reality is that science again and again says that on average we need 7 to 9, and if you're only getting 4, maybe you've just trained your body into that negative sleeping pattern. And what would it look like if your body was able to get the amount of sleep that it needs? So I want to talk about, we're going to shift into what happens to your body when you start to not give it enough sleep. So I was looking into like some of the things that can happen from a negative standpoint. So one of the things I was looking at is that when you drive sleepy, or when you're driving and you're tired, it can have the same symptoms of driving while drunk. And they say that each year, 100,000 auto accidents are caused just from being drowsy, from being tired. And then from that, 1,500 deaths end up happening each year because of that. And this is interesting. Did you know that Chernobyl, one of the greatest travesties, nuclear travesties of all time, was caused by somebody who was sleepy?
I did not know that.
Me neither. I read it a couple times because I'm like, that's it? It was because
Wow.
someone was sleepy? There was an Exxon oil spill. This was back in, I think, the 70s or 80s, caused millions of dollars in damage, not to mention what happened to the environment. And it was caused because somebody was sleeping on the job, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like the effects of not sleeping, I mean, they're deadly. They're
Mm-hmm.
more deadly than we can imagine.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and it can also dumb you down, of course. Which I'm sure people have noticed when they have had a serious lack of sleep. I know just from me personally, I feel like on days when I don't have enough sleep, sometimes I'll find myself staring off into space and just I'll have to sit there for a minute because I feel like I can't focus. So it interferes with our reasoning, our problem solving, and your memory actually is consolidated when you sleep. So if you do not get enough sleep, it really makes it difficult for you to remember. So, it's going to affect your learning, especially those of you parents out there with kids. It's very important for them in order to perform well in school, in order to learn. They really need that sleep because it can have all kinds of effects.
Yeah, and just from the standpoint of health as well, it puts you at higher risk for diabetes, for high blood pressure, for stroke, for heart attacks, because a lot of times when you're sleeping, that's when your body is going into recovery phase. And if you're not giving your body enough time to recover, that's a lot of what we talked about in the other episode about stress. Like that's when your body has the opportunity to lower stress, to recover itself. And if you're not giving it proper time, you're just building upon building all of that stress inside your body, which makes you more susceptible to illnesses.
Mm-hmm, right. And especially depression. That's one of a really big effect or an outcome of lack of sleep. And I'm not trying to downplay any depression, that comes from chemical imbalances and stuff like that. But a lot of other things can also affect and cause depression that actually is just from your body, either chemical imbalances, nutritional imbalances, sleep deprivation. So that can, especially if you're prone to depression, if you are not sleeping, that can really affect your mood and really cause a lot of depression. In fact, insomniacs, they are 5 times more likely to develop depression. So it really can have an effect on you mentally as well as physically.
I was thinking about what was great as a kid is like when you would have meltdowns, or just cry, your parents would just put you to bed.
Yeah.
It's like, and I like from an adult standpoint now, it's like when you see a child like having a meltdown and crying and just being unrealistically emotional, you look at them and you're like, you clearly need a nap.
I remember, I remember you. Well, I wasn't a big nap taker, but I remember you. It was almost like sundowning, except it was earlier in the afternoon, and you'd start sundowning, and you'd just be walking around crying, and mom would say, "Amy, go to bed," and then you'd go to bed, and then you'd be fine.
Yeah, I think, and it's funny, but I feel like sometimes we don't take a similar stance to ourselves. Because sometimes for us, like we demonize our own emotions, right? And it's like we like get into these like emotional roller coasters, or like things are bothering us, or we're getting snappy or like irritated or annoyed. And it's like instead of like thinking, okay, am I just here because I'm exhausted? Because a lot of times when you're tired, it can make you more vulnerable, right? And it can make things that maybe wouldn't be as bothersome more bothersome because your body is worn down. Everything is worn down. Your defenses are worn down. So sometimes it's good to remember that childlike state and look at children and think, my adult tantrum is probably going to look a lot different than that. Like I'm not going to like fall on the ground and stomp my feet and say I want my blankie. But if I'm on the phone with you, like me and you have had this, right? Like where
I've had those moments when I just want, especially if I'm tired and hungry, I just want to sit in the corner and cry, and I want my mom.
Yeah. Like
Mom!
we'll be on the phone talking to each other, and one or both of us is tired. So it's like one of us will get short with the other one, and it's like, well, what do you mean by that? And it's like, then you're like going off at each other, and like, it's like a baby tantrum, right? And it's like, how dare you? But really it's just understanding, okay, I'm probably tired. She's tired. We're probably both stressed. Let's nap, or let's go get rest, and then let's reconvene. Another thing, and this is especially for as you get older, lack of sleep ages your skin, which
we don't want that.
Yeah. Okay, so this is crazy. So when you are sleeping, something called human growth hormone. God, that was hard to get out of my mouth. Human growth hormone, HGH, is released during your sleep. And that hormone is what thickens your skin. It's what strengthens your bones. It what increases muscle mass, specifically in your face. But if you're not getting proper rest, guess what gets released? Cortisol.
Oh, dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, that hormone is like the devil. Like, I don't know that I've heard anything good about cortisol. So cortisol gets released instead of human growth hormone, because remember, that's like the stress hormone. And when that gets released, what happens is that is the hormone that actually breaks all those things down. So the thing that the human growth, don't say that 3 times fast.
Just say HGH.
HGH. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
What HGH is releasing can totally be broken down by cortisol. And you know what I was thinking? I was listening to this some podcast, and there was like a really long commercial, right? It was so long, and it was about your skin. And it was this long commercial about this leaf that someone had found in South America, and only a few people have this leaf. And the leaf has been harvested and put in a vial. And for 10 payments of $75, it can be yours. No. It's a month's supply, right? And I'm thinking people are making millions upon millions of dollars. And when I read that, I was like, oh, so really we can save so much money on serums by just putting our head to a pillow a couple extra hours a night. And that's really what's going to help our elasticity in our face and make sure that we are not aging faster, right? So there's genetics that come involved with it, but at the same time, there's things that you can naturally do that are 100% free, that are going to help from your skin aging, specifically your face, which is where we see age the most.
Right. So the term beauty sleep is actually legitimate. So if somebody says, I need my beauty sleep, there's something to that. Yeah. So another thing that we want to talk about, which we talk about a lot on this podcast, and we want to address that if you do not get enough sleep, you can gain weight and it can show up on the scale. In fact, people who sleep less than 6 hours a day are 30% more likely to be obese. That is a lot. That is a huge percentage. So sleep loss, it can actually signal peptides that regulate your appetite. So it can actually make you feel more hungry. And then it's also when you are hungry, which we talked about when we talked about naps a couple weeks ago, that this hunger, this certain hormone, it actually makes you crave carbs and sugar and things that are higher in fat. So if you're not getting enough sleep, your body is going to crave those things that are bad, and it's going to cause you to hang on to that weight, which of course we do not want at all.
Right. So I'm going to connect that one with the next one that I'm going to talk about, because this one is so important. So when you are not getting proper sleep, it impairs your judgment. And let me explain what I mean by that. The body is a really amazing vessel. And when it comes to your health, your body is always speaking to you, right? Like your body is always telling you about your health, whether that be through the regulation of digestive patterns, the way that you're feeling throughout the day, your energy levels, the smells that are coming from your body, the pains that you're having, the symptoms. All of those things are your body sending you signals about your health, because the body is just so amazing. So when it comes to being sleepy, the problem with not getting enough sleep is that the patterns of your body start to become skewed, which means that what you might think is healthy is really unhealthy, which we go back to what we said at the beginning. Your body is so impaired that you are believing that you're okay getting 3 and 4 hours of sleep because you are overworking your body, and you've created that as a norm without realizing all of the negative impact that that's having on you. It's almost like becoming blind to it. It's like turning off your body's natural indicators of, hey, stop that. We need help. We need rest. It's like sometimes we can silence our body's natural voice so much that we stop being able to hear it, which is why we then have to over-medicate ourselves, or we become addicted to certain things because we have shut down the body's natural inclination to speak to us about our health. So it can really impair your judgment, not just about your body, but then just impair your judgment about life. And guilty when I say I have made many inappropriate decisions and just not good ideas upon being sleepy. I have said things that I probably shouldn't have said when I am sleepy. You know, it's kind of like there's I saw a shirt one time that says, forgive me for what I said when I was hungry. And I think that that's so valid, but it's the same thing. Forgive me for what I said when I was sleepy, because it's like our judgment is impaired because our defenses are down.
Right, exactly. So let's talk about reasons why we do not sleep enough, because I think, we don't see this as a problem. So let's find some other reasons why. And I think that's number one, is we don't see this as a problem. We think that we just sleep. Basically, it's passing the time until we can get back to work the next day. And we don't see it as important, and we don't prioritize it. So I think that that is a huge issue for a lot of people. And the first step in trying to overcome it, just like with any problem, any addiction, any issue, the first step is admitting that you have a problem. So we're admitting today that we have this issue, that we need to address it, and we need to stop taking it for granted, and we need to acknowledge, like you said, Amy, with your body is always speaking to you. And the problem is you have to learn how to listen to it, and you have to learn to speak the language that your body speaks. So because of that, we need to listen, and we need to not take it for granted, and we need to make it a priority to take care of ourselves.
It's interesting that you say that, right? Because if you call me tomorrow morning and you're like, man, I drove drunk last night, I would be horrified. Like,
Right.
What do you mean?
Yeah.
How dare you? You put all these lives in order? I would get like Mama Gail voice. Like, what in the world? But if you call me and you were like, man, I drove last night and I was so tired, that's like, we would dismiss it, right? But if we're looking at science and research that's saying that those driving under those states it's almost the same thing. Your body is in very similar states. So understanding that it is not just something to shrug off. It's not just something to say, oh, I only slept 2 hours last night and we shrug it off. That's when we say, I only slept 2 hours a night. I need to investigate because this is not good. This is not a good thing for my body. And like, forcing yourself, because for some of us, this will be forcing. forcing yourself to get into a routine of making rest a priority. Because for me, rest is weakness. Rest means that I'm not going to make the right progress that I need to make. Rest means that I'm going to lose ground. You know, like the phrases that some of these, I know specifically in the entrepreneur world, right? Like, I'll sleep when I'm dead. Okay, but I'll be dead by 50. That's a lot of extra sleep. You know
Yep.
what I mean? As opposed to being dead when I'm 70, or
Mhm.
like, no days off. So some of us have been trained by that, and maybe not even like purposefully trained. Maybe we just grew up in a house where like working long hours, that was how you gained your value. So the idea of rest is I won't have value. That's lazy. Taking naps is lazy. Sleeping 8 hours is lazy. So for some of us, it's going to be a little bit more difficult because it is truly a rewiring of our brains and putting people in our lives that demand rest, that see when we're tired and say, no, you need to rest.
Right. Yeah. So another thing that is going to interfere with us getting a lot of sleep is doing too much caffeine, which I don't have a problem with. I do not like pop. I do not like coffee, but I know that that is a huge thing for a lot of people. They use coffee to function. But caffeine, of course, can interfere with your sleep because it's going to get you all hyped up. It's going to get your energy up. It can keep you from falling asleep. Too much alcohol consumption. And then if you are dependent on sleeping pills, I know sometimes I actually have taken all natural melatonin, and that does seem to help me, although I don't know if it's a placebo or it's actually helping me. But I know that if you get into a habit when your body is depending on it, it can actually damage your sleep, and it can help you or keep you from being energized during the day. Because I know I've done Benadryl before, which Benadryl really knocks me out. And then I'll sleep really, really heavy. And then I'll wake up and I'll feel drowsy all of the next day. So sleep aids, I know sometimes can be helpful, but at the same time, if you become dependent on them, it can be very harmful and can keep you from getting quality sleep.
Yeah, I think I mean the word that I think that we can introduce now that we're probably going to be saying throughout is your circadian rhythm, right? So
Mhm.
everybody has a circadian rhythm, which essentially is your body telling you when it's time to go to sleep and when it's time to wake up. I mean, we live in a world now where we have artificial lighting, but there was a time when there wasn't. So the way that your body knew was when the sun went down, time to go to bed. When the sun comes up, time to wake up. But now we live in a world where we have all of this extra lighting and it's hard for us to determine. So when you're including things like caffeine, alcohol, and sleeping pills, what's happening is that you are totally disregarding your circadian rhythm, and your circadian rhythm becomes messed up because now it becomes a slave to a substance. I know for me, I drink a lot of coffee, and this was not always so. I just got into it, and then I had friends that were really into it that introduced me to really good coffee, and I was drinking like 4 and 5 cups a day. So I tried to get off of it, and I stopped drinking caffeine, and it was really difficult because my body got so tired. But here was the difference. When I stopped drinking caffeine, when I tried to go to bed at night, I had deeper, more restful sleep. Whereas when I drank caffeine, it would keep me awake during the day, and towards when I was trying to go to bed, I would get tired, but it took me so long to go to sleep. And then when I went to sleep, I didn't feel like I was sleeping. It was like a tossing and turning type of deal. So when it comes to being dependent on caffeine, alcohol, sleeping pills, getting off of them can be very difficult. However, if that's something that you're able to explore, I would encourage you to explore it, because a lot of times it's not just about what the effects are at the moment. It's what's happening with your sleep patterns. So even if you're on these substances, getting to sleep and staying to sleep can become a problem, which means even if you're sleeping, it's not quality sleep.
Mm-hmm. Right. So another thing, which we're going to talk more about this when we talk about tips and tricks on how to get some better sleep. But another thing that is going to interfere with your sleep is if you don't have a regular sleep pattern. And some of this obviously cannot be avoided, but not having a set schedule, a set bedtime, a set time when you wake up, or a set wind down routine can really interfere with your sleep, because our bodies learn and we all have habits, we all have certain things, our bodies are used to things, and so you can train your body that, okay, now it's time to go to sleep. Just like you were talking about the circadian rhythm, that's something that our body learns, it's natural. So if we don't institute a pattern, and if we don't line it up with our circadian rhythm as much as we can, that can really damage our sleep patterns. It could keep us from falling asleep, it can keep us from staying asleep.
Yeah, and I think this is similar to eating patterns, right? And we talked about this a few weeks ago. It's like the reason why eating patterns are so good is because you put your body on a schedule, which means that like all day my body's not saying I'm hungry, I'm hungry. Like if you're always feeding your body, then once again, you're not letting your body speak to you, so you never even really know what it means to be hungry. It's the same thing with your sleeping pattern. If you're not giving your body patterns, then it's either going to always be telling you it's tired or always be telling you it's wide awake. And you could take that as truth when it's really just your body is just dysfunctioning. It has no pattern. And as we know, if you have kids, they thrive on schedules, they thrive on patterns, because it's like you're telling them, you're putting boundaries. It's the same thing with ourselves. It's like, how do I incorporate patterns that then become boundaries so that I can learn when my body really is tired and when my body really does have energy.
One other thing I want to talk about too is sleep disorders. I know that some people do suffer from those: insomnia, sleep apnea, restless leg syndrome. So for those, we are going to defer to a medical professional. Some of those you do need to seek some medical attention and possibly do medications or go on a CPAP machine. So anything that's going to interfere medically with your sleep patterns, you need to address it. You should not put it on the back burner. You should seek professional help. Whether it's, they do medications, whatever the issue is, but that can be, and it can cause a whole lot of other health issues like we just talked about. So if that's causing your sleep to be interrupted or to not be as deep, that's something you definitely want to seek medical attention for, because that can be an issue as well.
Another thing is your night routine. I'm just going to lump it. Like anytime you listen to how successful people go about their day, a lot of successful people talk about their night routine or their day routine. What do they do in the mornings? And it's usually very sacred, and it's all preparing them for the gravity of their schedule of that day, preparing their mind and their body to tackle what it is that they're doing that day. I don't hear a lot about night routines. I actually just started even talking about night routines in the past few months. But I feel like it's just as important to have a night routine as you do a morning routine, because the night routine is signaling your body that it is time to wind down. And I think so many of us don't have that. We're staying up really late and we're eating and drinking, right? Which of course is going to wreak havoc on our digestion during the night, meaning we'll be uncomfortable sleeping because our stomach's full, or we'll be peeing 10 to 15 times at night. And then it's if you're not winding down, if you exercise really late, or you're gaming, or you're on your phone or TV, it's all these stimulants that you have. When you go to lay down, it's going to be much more difficult for you to get in a state of being able to fall asleep, because you've just signaled to your body it's time to wake up. All this stimulation within your body and without, it's hard to allow your body to start relaxing. The same way when you do a morning routine that you're signaling your body it's time to get moving, you need to incorporate things in your night that is telling your body it's time to shut down. We're getting ready to rest and we're getting ready to recover, which can be difficult because a lot of us weren't raised that way. And to be honest, people just don't value it as much.
Let's talk about how we can get some better sleep, because we already talked about it's very important. So we want to make sure that we can take steps in the right direction to get us sleeping better. So one thing that we can do, like you just talked about, is to get a regular night routine and keep it in sync with your body's natural sleep schedule. So we've talked about this a couple of times about our circadian rhythm. I actually heard about this study a long time ago that it said that circadian rhythm is very much affected by light, and it's meant to be like that. When it's light outside, your body says it's time to be awake. When it gets dark outside, your body says it's time to go to sleep. And so I heard that actually people that live on the western end of a time zone, which if that's the case, I'm sorry, but you're not going to get as good of sleep as those on the eastern end. And I mean, if you think about it, so let's say you need to get up every day at 5 o'clock. And in order for you to get, an adequate amount of sleep, you want to make sure you're going to bed at 9 p.m. Well, if you live, let's say I'm living at the very western end of my time zone. It is 9 o'clock and it's dark outside. Whereas, let's say it's 8 o'clock. It's still light outside. So the people right across the street, they're an hour ahead of me. So it's still light outside and it's 9 o'clock and they need to go to bed so they can get up at 5 o'clock. So they're going to be at a disadvantage because it's still light outside. So we want to make sure that, because even if you get your 9 hours, 8 hours of sleep, and you're sleeping during the day, it's not as effective. You're not going to get that deep REM sleep. That's why people that work midnights and have irregular sleep schedules are very often much more unhealthy. So you want to make sure that you have a regular bedtime. And maybe that might make you feel like you're 5 years old. But I personally, especially since I've taken this job and I've been working this job for 7 years, I have to get up very early. So because of that, I have turned into an old lady. So people know that if you call me past 9 o'clock, you're probably not going to get me because I'm going to be asleep. So, but that's because I'm waking up super early. So you need to be very disciplined on when your bedtime is. And you want to make sure that you have a regular wake up time. So you also want to avoid sleeping in, especially on the weekends, because it's kind of like that jet lag effect. And I know I can see doing
I know. My immediate face was like, I disagree with this. Keep going.
I know. But see, this is the thing. If you have a regular sleep schedule, and that means regular bedtime, but it also means regular wake up time. So we have to train our body to do that. So if on the weekends we're sleeping 12 hours, first of all, you've wasted away your entire weekend. You want to get up and go outside, enjoy the sunshine, enjoy the sunrise and the birds chirping and all that nonsense. But you want to make sure that, me on the weekends, I don't like to sleep in, but I don't want to wake up with an alarm. But my body is naturally trained because the latest that I wake up during the week is 5:30, and that's absolute latest. Usually it's earlier than that. So on the weekends, sleeping in for me is 7 a.m. So it doesn't have to be, you don't have to set an alarm on your days off and say, okay, I have to get up at 6 a.m. But you want to make sure when your body tells you I'm ready to wake up, that you don't just lay in the bed and fall back to sleep, because you're interfering with your actual sleep cycle. So another thing too, keeping with the sync with the schedule, which me and you definitely need to talk about, and I almost did this today, we need to limit our naps.
This is really hard for me.
I know it's very hard. Well, when I say limit our naps, we need to be more wise with our napping. Mm-hmm. So we want to limit it to 15 to 20 minutes in the early afternoon. And I've noticed this: when I nap, I really nap and fall asleep really heavy. And then after that, I wake up, I'm very groggy, jet lag feeling, and then I cannot go to sleep at night. So I'm sorry, you got to cut out your naps.
But this is what I find really interesting about all these facts. It's like, because I don't implement the idea of going to bed at the same time, creating a pattern, the things that you're telling me, of course, is thinking like you are trying to take away at my livelihood, right? Because it's like, what do you mean I can't nap for an hour every day? Like, that's how I survive. Or what do you mean I have to drink less coffee? I can't live. But it's like, if we take away the lack of sleep or the our inability to create a pattern in our life, and we start putting that in, then we're not going to need those other things as much. So if I have a set sleep pattern and I am getting my 7 to 9 hours every night, and I am putting myself in a routine and I'm on my circadian rhythm, then I'm not going to need the other things that I'm using to supplement the fact that I'm just getting really awful sleep.
Exactly. Yes, your body is meant to give you rest and to make you feel energized. So if we do it right, we won't need the naps and we won't need the caffeine. You're
Yeah.
exactly right.
Thank you so much. That
You're
was hard.
welcome.
Right when you said 15 to 20 minutes, I was already upset because I
I
saw it.
knew.
I saw myself snuggling, setting the alarm for an hour. Google
I,
already
s-
knows. I
I
already
saw
let
it in your face.
me and Google have a great relationship. I'm like, you already know it's the hour. Set the timer. But yeah, this is a great point and a great challenge.
All right. And the next thing that we're going to talk about is controlling our exposure to light. So basically, what we're meaning when we talk about this is we want to mimic the sunrise to sunset. So basically, we're up at sunrise. At sunset, we go to bed, which not exactly, obviously, but we want to train our bodies to do this because that's the way that our bodies are set up. When it's light outside, we naturally wake up. When it's dark outside, we go to bed. So in the morning, we want to make sure rise and shine. We get into the sunshine. So once we get up, it's so nice to start your day, especially early in the morning. You go outside, maybe you can go see the sunrise, drink your coffee on the porch. Anything that gets you out and that's going to wake your body up. So you want to do that. Spend as much time as you can outside during the day in the sunlight if you can. If you don't have any access to sun, like if it's wintertime, and there is not a lot of light exposure, or of course, when it is winter, there's less daylight time. So a lot of times we're working during the daylight hours. You can get a light box. I've seen these. I've gotten one from Amazon before. So basically, it looks like an iPad or a tablet. You turn it on and you put it in your eye line so that it's reflecting into your eyes. You're not staring right at it, but it kind of mimics the sun. So your eyes think that I'm outside in the sunlight and your body thinks that. So do that. You want to avoid, when we talk about getting to the sunset part of our day, we want to make sure that we're avoiding screens. I know in this day and age that we live in, we are constantly in front of screens. We're in front of iPads and phones and laptops and TVs. We really need to learn how to put those things down, because just like that light box, when we turn it on, that artificial light is getting into our eyes and it's telling our bodies it's light outside, it's daytime. We need to be awake because we got stuff to do. So same thing with these laptops and computers and tablets. When we're looking at those, the light is getting into our eyes and it's telling us it's still daylight outside. You got a lot to do. It's not time to go to bed yet. So we want to make sure that we're avoiding those types of artificial lights 1 to 2 hours before bed. Make sure that you're not watching TV super late, that late night TV. For one, we have the light issue, but for two, a lot of times some TV shows, they can really be stimulating. Maybe it's an action one, or maybe it's a really depressing drama and you're crying your eyes out and then it's hard for you to go to bed. You just want to make sure that you're avoiding that. And then you want to make sure, if you are going to read before bed, I highly recommend reading before bed. It really helps shut your brain off, but you want to make sure that you're not using those devices that are backlit, so that you're getting something, either an e-reader that has no backlighting, or you're using a physical book. But you want to make sure that that light is not getting into your eyes, so that your body knows, hey, it's dark outside. It's nighttime. It's time to go to bed.
Yeah. I think this kind of goes with the mentality of having some form of night routine. I know so many people, because we rely on our phones, or we rely on the TV to fill our time. It can be difficult because it's like you have an hour before bed and you're not supposed to be on your phone and you shouldn't be watching TV. So what is there to do? So I think really getting creative as possible and figuring out what can I do to fill that time, so that you can start winding down. I know for me, like sometimes I do nighttime yoga for like 15 minutes, and it's just stretching. I mean, literally it's just stretching the body and calming my body down. It can be meditation, it can be writing, some form of creative outlet. It can be chatting with someone, so don't just leave that space open, assign it to something, because then if you leave that space open, you're going to be like, because most of us are addicted to our electronic devices. We're just going to be like, I wish I could touch my phone. I wish I could turn the TV on. So find something to fill that time and space with, so that you can minimize the light without feeling like you're going crazy.
Right. Or listen to a podcast, like Just One More Cookie. It'll help
Yeah.
you fall asleep.
Yes. Don't fall
Yeah.
asleep. You can even fall asleep in the middle of what we're talking about and then wake up and
And
listen
then
to
listen
more
to
of
the
us.
rest. Yes.
Yeah. And two, like a lot of times I know people fall asleep to noise, to TV, um, to their phones, like plugged in, like put in their ears if they're listening to something, like if you're watching YouTube. I just want to say, like, be careful with that because when you're sleeping, first of all, you never know what you are mentally digesting while you are sleeping. So if you are one that like falls asleep to electronics, really try to implement and put things in place where you don't have as much noise because you don't know what kind of noise is going into your ears at that time. There's so many studies that talk about the things that we listen to and how it can impact our sleep, but not just our sleep. It can impact how we wake up, our thoughts, the things that we hold on to. You don't even know what they're saying in these TV shows or things you're listening to, and that can really be impacting you without you even realizing it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So another thing that really is going to help with our sleep habits is exercise. And, we exercise has all kinds of benefits, which we learned before. There's a ton of them, but it also helps us with our sleep. So it is going to actually help us feel less drowsy during the day, which usually, if you do a morning workout, you can feel energized. It makes you, get up and go. You feel ready to meet the day. And it also can help you if you have any sleep disorders. It can actually help. It can help to improve insomnia, sleep apnea, and it actually increases your amount of REM sleep, your rapid eye movement sleep. So that's your deep sleep, and that's where your body is really recovering, is during those REM cycles. So exercising can help during those and help you get that more vigorous, restful sleep. So it's going to speed up your metabolism. It's going to elevate your body temperature, stimulate your hormones, and that's going to help you really in the morning hours to wake up. But keep in mind, the same effect is going to happen if you do this later in the evening. So you want to make sure that you are limiting this to at least 3 hours before you go to bed, because when your temperature is elevated, you feel hot, your metabolism is burning, your body is super awake, super alert. It's going to be harder for you to fall asleep. So that high intensity, vigorous exercise, you want to keep for at least 3 hours before you go to bed. So the low intensity, like you were talking about with stretching or yoga, is great to calm your body down. But any kind of exercise, it's going to help you to relax. It's going to help you to feel more energized. And then it's going to help you with your sleep.
Yeah, and just to mention about the connection between exercise and resting and sleep. As far as exercising in general, like your performance, your physical performance improves so much when you are incorporating rest and sleep into the mix. Like I know for me, this whole topic started because I was going really, really hard with exercise. And I've shared this with you guys before. I can get very manic in my health behaviors. And specifically with working out, I love it so much. I love it beyond just its health benefits. I love it just in general as an activity. I love moving. But I had been going so hard, and I had injured myself while doing a workout because I had just been working out so hard. And I was talking to a friend who's a trainer, and I was telling him about my injury, and he was like, for the next 4 days, all you can do is walk and do yoga. You have to stop working out so hard. And I panicked. Absolutely I was near tears. I called Abigail and I was telling her, you will not believe it. I can't. I'm gonna be able to work out. I'm gonna have to do yoga and just walk. I'm like freaking out. And Abigail was saying the fact that this is upsetting you so much shows that you're getting manic and that your body needs rest.
Mm-hmm.
And once again, this goes back to a lot of times when we're talking about rest and sleep, we are fighting it because we sometimes discredit sleep as an unnecessary, as you're being lazy, as you're not accomplishing things. But especially when it comes to your health. And when it comes to working out, injury happens when you are not resting. You're not getting as much out of your performance physically if you are not resting, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, all of it. You are minimizing the impact of it. So sometimes we spend so much time overdoing it, when really, if we just rested, we could get more results with less effort put forth. And I would challenge you to do that, because that week was an amazing week.
Mm-hmm.
And when I got back on it, when I actually started working out, my performance blew my mind. And I thought, I'm going to lose ground. If I stop, I'll lose ground. When really, you don't lose ground, you gain ground. So
Mm-hmm.
rest is just as important as going hard, especially when it comes to exercise.
Absolutely. Yes. I actually, point of fact, a couple weeks ago, I was really getting frustrated. I was having a couple weeks in a row where I'd gained or I'd stay the same. And I decided to cut back on my really high intensity. And I just did yoga for a week, and I worked on relaxation. I worked on a bedtime routine, getting more sleep. And I actually lost, I think, 2 pounds that week. So we don't always have to be pushing ourselves so hard, but we just need to. Honestly, and the study that I was reading about, it says that even walking 10 minutes a day can help increase your sleep. So anything that you're doing, you don't have to go crazy, but you just want to make sure that you're taking care of your body, that you're giving it the energy that it needs, and then you're giving it the rest that it needs. So one other thing that we need to make sure that we're doing is that we're being smart about what we are eating and drinking. So we want to make sure we limit our caffeine, which you already talked about. So I didn't know this because, of course, as we said, I don't do caffeine, but caffeine can actually affect your sleep 10 to 12 hours after drinking it. So if you drink a cup of coffee at your lunchtime at noon, you by 10 o'clock might still have the effects of that caffeine in your body. That's a really interesting thing to think about. So if you're having trouble falling asleep, if you had a cup of coffee at 2 o'clock because you started feeling really tired after lunch at work, you're going to be affected by it later. So you want to make really wise decisions when you're introducing caffeine into your body. You want to avoid big meals at night, which you talked about this already, but especially if you have stomach troubles or if you have heartburn, because that's really going to bother you. You're not going to be able to fall asleep right away. You're going to be having, stomach aches. We want to make sure, plus you don't want to have that there's nothing worse than being super full and then laying down and just having all that heavy stuff just sitting there. It's really uncomfortable. So, and we also want to make sure that we are not drinking a lot of liquids before bed. I have the hardest time with this, and I don't know what it is. I feel like before I get into bed, I could drink a gallon of water. I feel so thirsty, and I don't know what it is. And then I end up making many late night trips to the Whiz Palace because I just have to go to the bathroom constantly. So, but if you can't avoid it, if your body doesn't tell you that you're going to die if you don't drink some water, you should avoid it.
Yeah.
And then also cutting back on carbs and sugar. All of those can trigger wakefulness and actually can pull you out of that REM sleep, which you already talked about, is very important. So avoiding a lot of carbs, a lot of sugars, especially in the evening time, making sure that it's out of your system, because if you have that in your system, it can actually affect your sleepy time.
Your sleepy time.
Mm-hmm.
So the next one is basically focusing on creating a night routine that allows you to wind down. So I think this goes back to establishing, when am I waking up and when am I going to sleep? And this is something that you can kind of experiment with, because I know for me, I was like going through this time when I was like, I want to be a part of the 5 a.m. club, because everyone that's saying that they're waking up at 5 a.m., they're so productive, and I'm going to wake up when it's dark and I'm going to get all this stuff done. So I did it twice, and I was so excited because it was like 7 a.m. and I was like, I got all this stuff done. But the problem is that I was taking like 3-hour naps by 8 a.m. because I was so tired. So I then decided to shift it back to my normal wake up time, which is about 6. My alarm goes off at 6, and then I wake up at like 6:10. So when I switched it back, I was less tired because my circadian rhythm likes to wake up at 6. So if I go to bed at like between 9:30 and 10, That's kind of that's my go to bed time. And then 6 is my wake up time. So if I'm doing that on a consistent basis, then I know if my bedtime is 10, then around 8:30 I should start winding down, right? So then that's where your night routine is going to start. So during my night routine, and all the things that you're picking should be things that are calming your brain, right? So
Mhm.
don't pick things that are going to stress you out. So like during my wind down time, I'm not going to go into my task list and like start editing a book. That's not going to benefit my wind down time. So that could be night yoga, that could be leisure reading. Sometimes I do, like, I write in my journal, I do a reflection of the day, I do a gratitude journal, I do what was something that I'm thankful for today that I can reflect over. I prep for the next day. So I lay out clothes. I like anything that's going to calm my mind, right? And then a lot of times I plan for the next day because for me, sometimes it's difficult to go to sleep because I'm still thinking about all the things I need to get done the next day. So if I go to sleep having my day planned out, it makes it easier for me to wind down and calm down. And electronics are so amazing. You can even have my Google Home. I can tell it to get me ready for sleep, and it'll start playing calming music. So it's like you can set a routine that is specifically signaling your body, right? Dimming the lights, making sure that there's no bright lights, making sure that my phone's away from me. So pick 3 to 5 things that you can do every night during that time, and pick it between an hour and an hour and a half before your established bedtime, and start doing that to get your body in the mode of getting ready to go to sleep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think also another thing that you can do is do deep breathing right before bed. And a lot of times when you're doing yoga, if you do decide to do that right before bed, that of course is a really big part of yoga. But you can also do this if you wake up during the night and find yourself having difficulty falling back to sleep. I have a hard time with this, not a lot, but sometimes when I do, especially if I have to wake up because I drank a gallon of water before I went to bed. And then I wake up and sometimes I get back in the bed and immediately I can't shut my brain off. I'm thinking about, okay, I have to get this done for work tomorrow. I have to make sure I'm doing this. I have to do, like, I go through all of my list of things and then I start worrying, like, what if this happens? What if all these what ifs come into my head? So, and I actually have not tried this, but this is one thing I read when I was doing research for this, is that you can do deep breathing exercises to try to clear your head when you have woken up in the middle of the night to keep those thoughts from coming in. So if you haven't tried it, give it a try. See if it helps just to clear your brain, because I know a lot of us, especially, we use our phones, our technology throughout the day, and sometimes it can really distract us and numb our brains. So then when we shut them off, all we have is a bunch of thoughts running through our heads, and we're trying to process and we're trying to de-stress, and all of it is just hitting us at once. So give it a try and see if it works. So I'm going to try it if I happen to wake up again in the middle of the night and see how it works, and I'll let you know.
Yeah. Another thing that you can do is your sleep environment is try to improve it. So one of the things is keeping noise down towards your sleeping time, right? And that goes back to like shutting the TV off. Even if you have TV on before you're going to bed, like have the volume down, before you get into your night routine. If you're someone that likes to watch TV at night, great, but don't blare it. Like make sure that like as it's getting darker outside, like you're starting to pull back on volume, so you're getting less stimulation. Your room itself, keep your room cool and dark. This might not be for everybody. I like my room warm and dark, but whatever temperature, let the temperature fit what makes you comfortable. Like you don't want to have the temperature be like where you're sweating or the temperature where you're freezing. Get a temperature in the room that gets you good and comfortable. And make sure your bed is comfortable. A lot of times, some of our sleep problems can come with the fact that we have an outdated mattress. So that could be something you could look into too. And like, you don't have to spend a whole bunch of money on a super elevated mattress. Like they have really great mattresses, even on Amazon, for quality prices.
And we want to make sure, like I said before, we're going to make sure that we're going to stay out of our head. Don't dwell on stress, which is so much easier said than done. Oh, don't worry about it. Don't stress about it. But that is one thing that we really want to work on. We want to try those techniques to reduce our stress that we've talked about. And we want to make the focus on relaxing and not sleeping. Because I know sometimes I've had this happen before where I'm tired and I know, okay, I need to go to sleep because I have to wake up super early. And so I'll be sitting in my bed and I'll just keep my eyes shut. I'm like, okay, go to sleep, go to sleep. And then I'll just sit there and then I'll open my eyes and like, I can't fall asleep. And then you start getting in your head about, I cannot fall asleep. So don't make it your goal to be, okay, I need to be asleep in 5 minutes. It's okay. This is time for me to unwind and relax. I'm going to lay in my bed and this is my body's time to relax. So don't stress about it. Don't get in your head about it, but you want to make sure that we're making this a priority.
Yeah. And I want you to understand that the thing that's so great about the idea of setting a routine for yourself is to understand that everybody's circadian rhythm is different and every body is different. So just like when we were talking about physical health and what we feed our bodies and what our body responds to, Abigail's body physically responds to different foods differently than my body does, and her eating times and her eating patterns. So for her, she has to go on her journey to figure out what works best for her. And I have to do the same for me. Now, here's the base truth. Either of us eating a bag of Cheetos every day is not going to be a good idea, right? Mm-hmm. So this is the same thing with like sleeping. So Abigail's circadian rhythm is going to be different than my circadian rhythm, but both of us know getting 4 hours of sleep is not going to work for either of us, right? Mm-hmm. So we've established that we need 7 to 9 hours of sleep every single night, that we're not just saying it, that is backed by science. So from here, now you get to go on the journey to explore what is your circadian rhythm and how do you operate best when it comes to sleeping and relaxing? Does it work best for you to go to sleep at 9? Or does this work best for you to go to sleep at 10 and wake up at 6, or go to sleep at 10 and wake up at 7? You can experiment with those just like I did and do the 5 a.m. club and realize, terrible idea. I am not a part of the 5 a.m. club. I don't work well. They don't like me. I don't like them. I can't do it. So you find what works for you. Find a night routine that works for you. If night yoga doesn't work for you, then do night stretching. If night stretching, meditation. So experiment with this, because it is so important. Just like having a meal plan is important, having a sleep plan is important, because this isn't just about losing weight. This is about the longevity of your life. This is about how many wrinkles are going to show up on your face. This is about how exposed you can be to medical issues, So this is something that we definitely want you to spend time, because I know this is something that me and Abigail have been talking about consistently for the past few weeks, because it's not a place that we excel, that we are working on our rest. I know, Abigail, you make goals on your sleep, mm-hmm. and because it's important. And it is an important factor in your overall well-being. So we are challenging you this week. Step 1 challenge is to get a night routine. And the step 2 challenge is to try to get 7 to 9 hours of sleep. And if you think, dear God, I can't even get 4 hours of sleep, I can't even tackle that, the first thing that you should do is go back and listen to the things that are stopping us from getting sleep and figure out where you might lie on that. And once again, what we mentioned earlier before, if you are finding that you've tried all these things and you still can't get to sleep, you might want to look into talking to your doctor, because it might be a disorder. It might be that you have a pre-existing medical condition that needs attention. So we want to hear your results too. So reminder, one more cookie pod, POD at gmail.com. So share it with us. What's your night routine? How did it go? Do you hate us? Do you like... There's no way we can get 7 to 9 hours. Do you hate that we're trying to take away your hour naps? Because I know it's going to take me a while to get used to that and even try to set my alarm for 15 minutes for a nap. But we want to hear from you as to how you're working, and we want you to get the proper rest because it's important. So thank you so much for joining us again for another episode of Just One More Cookie, and give yourself the rest that you deserve. We will see you next time.